Welcome back. Thank you for keeping it Citizen Television. This is Daybreak, in case you're just joining us. And we are just taking you through what has been happening in your country and, of course, beyond. A lot indeed. And we want to begin our conversation for the morning. We are talking about the cabinet appointments yesterday. And, of course, we'll also go into the security situation in the northern part of the country.
And the remedies thereof needed to arrest the situation. On my far right is Ikal Angele. She is the human rights defender from the county of Turkana. Good morning, Angele. Thank you for your time and company. On her left is Joseph Makilap. He is the Member of Parliament, Baringo North Constituency, Baringo County, the home county of the second president. Thank you for your time. Naisula Lesuda is the MP, Samburu West Constituency. Thank you for your time and company, Honorable.
Thank you.
All appreciated. And Titus Lote, on my immediate right, is the Member of Parliament representing Kacheliba Constituency. Thank you. And our panel is all gender balanced. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We were saying this is actually the true representation of 50-50 in studio this morning. But karibuni once again.
Thank you.
Of course, we want to start this conversation from straight what happened yesterday. The big news, even on the dailies this morning, is the new cabinet that has been unveiled by President William Ruto. And we just want to get your quick comments on what you gather from the list of cabinet appointees this morning. I'll start with you, Mheshimiwa Titus Lote. Just looking at what Deputy President William Ruto has unveiled as the list of those who will help him to implement his promise to the country. What is on your mind?
Well, thank you so much. I think the cabinet is set, and I think the government is now ready to actually start rolling. For me, I think what the president has done is to try to bring a blend of a lot of balancing, because he's balanced between the old and the new, which is actually very good. He's also tried to balance between those that are experienced in terms of the cabinet positions and those that are actually coming in with a lot of experience from outside the cabinet. A little bit of what is not been able to meet is actually the promise of getting the 10-10, 50-50% of both genders. Well, it's gone a little bit in terms of getting the 2/3, so that out of the 21, it's got 7 women, which is very good. But I think there was a charter that was signed with the women, and I think the women of Kenya probably will be looking for opportunities to see that this is also met, which has actually not been met at this particular level. So for me, it's actually a good cabinet, which Kenyans are looking for to see that this country is going to move forward.
Okay. Honorable Lesuda, your account of the event at State House yesterday.
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me here. And just to add to what my colleague has said, that you know, the cabinet is now in place, fully constituted. And it's interesting to see the blend of, you know, politicians, and I like what they've said, a sprinkle of technocrats. And personally, I think it's not a bad thing to have politicians in cabinet, because then they have the direct touch. You know, I've had a friend who, in the last cabinet, was a technocrat, and she told me, and no, in 2013, and then she ran in 2017, and she says, if I went to cabinet again, I would look at things differently, because I have had the touch with the common mwananchi, and I have seen things differently from just my air-conditioned office in Nairobi. And so I see experience here. I see also loyalty being rewarded. People who have stuck with the president now, when he was the deputy president. But I also want to agree that the women of Kenya were really looking forward to the 50-50. Yes, a third is good. And, you know, no one gender is more than 2/3. But, you know, as opposition leaders, we will hold account the government to the promises that they made to Kenyans. And one of them was actually to ensure that the cabinet, when they signed the charter and the list of things that they had promised the women of Kenya and the girls of Kenya, one of them was to have a 50-50 gender balance in the cabinet. Of course, it's gone over and above to cover it up with the appointees of the advisors, but it was cabinet 50-50.
Okay, and mentioning what you have talked about in terms of the third that was met by the announcement which the president made yesterday. You serve as a member of parliament, and that is a very key ingredient house that looks at whatever happens in the country from the bird's eye view perspective. Then what do you do in terms of looking at these nominees made by the president yesterday?
So, okay, so, you know, there's no law that has been broken because none of them is greater than 2/3. Okay, so always the women will get their third. I look forward to when it's the men who actually have their third. So there's actually nothing illegal there. It's just that it was a promise. You know, when they signed the charter at Nyayo Stadium, and there was the excitement and the buzz, and I know that time it was to counter when, as the mayor, we had Honorable Martha Karua as our running mate, and so, you know, there was the buzz and the good feeling in the country. And then, so what do we do with this, you know, from the Kenya Kwanza? And they said, okay, when we win, our cabinet will be 50-50. Okay, the time for promises and talks, it's over. It's time for action.
All right. Yeah. Mheshimiwa, she just talked about, you know, the promise that the Kenya Kwanza government gave Kenyans before they took over power. I also want to get your perspective on the list of cabinet appointees, and also because they will be coming to Parliament. Their names are subject to approval by Parliament. What will you be asking them? What will you be looking out for in some of these candidates?
First of all, thank you so much. I think the president has done a very strategic cabinet. Talking from the government side, because I'm a member of Kenya Kwanza, and my colleagues here are speaking from the opposition.
And you had to get that out.
I want to say that this cabinet, very strategic, now and beyond. The president is trying to cut across the country to ensure that he plans professionals, politicians, and even people who bottom up. There is a cabinet secretary for our school in Jeru who was an MCA, but he's landed in a cabinet position. So to me, the president has rewarded loyalty, has also had institutional memory. If you have some cabinet secretaries being an advisor, like Choma, Chelogoi, that is an institutional memory of his cabinet. And now very serious professionals like Professor Njuguna Ndungu, and rewarding the people who worked hard. On the issue of gender, I knew they wanted to make a point there, but you see, this is a very serious attempt to actually achieve the 50-50, because for the first time, you have 7, and my brothers, honorable members here are saying the advisors are not of the, but these are equivalent to cabinet portfolio. If you heard what the president says, he says this is cabinet portfolio. So 7, they should have appreciated, say we are over 70%.
But the promise was 11.
Yes, but we're still forming government. So there are very good things for the women of Kenya. And for the first time, let us also congratulate William Ruto for doing this much. So I think we are on the right course, and we expect them to come to Parliament, and where we should be able to scrutinize and even ask the people of the public of Kenya to, you know, make submissions so that we have the best for this country. So that this country, we have men and women that can take this country forward.
But
okay.
we have to...
We'll come to you, Honorable. Just hang on. So let's drop in. I'll come to you, Honorable. Just hang on. Let's go to Ikalangeleo. What's your account from human rights perspective as to the names yesterday listed by President William Ruto?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I think one of the things, as Honorable Naisuda and her colleague have mentioned, that the 50-50. I think when you sort of say that at the beginning of the campaign, it is critical to see it through, and that 50-50 has not been seen through. But also having said that, the regional balance is important, and the technocrats and politicians is very important. But lastly, what we don't see, when you talk about bottom-up, when you talk about the people in the informal sector, young people are not in this cabinet. And young people were really the people who they were reaching out to during the campaign. So a lot of young people were part of the campaign. A lot of young people were actually, you know, being part of the whole agenda, the conversation. But they're not young people here. And then persons with disability. We cannot keep having persons with disability on the periphery constantly. As a country, we've never had a person with disability in cabinet. And we were hoping that that bottom-up really meant inclusivity from all the different inclusivity, meaning that it's not only, you know, from the regions, but also inclusivity in terms of persons with disability and young people.
Before we move on, you've cited, what you think of the list of cabinet appointees, but just to even come back to you, Mheshimiwa Lesuda, it's all about, from what I've gathered, it's all about rewarding loyalists, those who worked hard. It's all about having the face of women in the cabinet. I'm yet to hear something that touches on the expectations in terms of service delivery. A Kenyan who's watching this morning, what would you tell the new cabinet in terms of what they're expected to deliver for that Kenyan?
Okay, so I believe that the competence part of it really will come out during the vetting. So of course they have to be vetted by Parliament. There'll be an appointments committee, and there are a lot of things that will be asked and a lot of questions. Of course, issues of integrity and whether you're fit to actually hold the office, and also what you're bringing on the table and what we expect to see in terms of service delivery, and even the understanding of the docket. When we'll be asking questions, the understanding of the docket. So of course, what we gave first was just the face value. When we just look at it, that we didn't see persons with disability or the gender, the what. But I think really the in-depth will be seen when we'll be vetting them, and Kenyans will be eagerly watching to see, because that will be their first interaction with Kenyans to show what they're actually going to offer Kenyans, and of course in lines with their agenda of Kenya Kwanza, but most importantly to service delivery to Kenyans.
Because what we now have in place is a government, the campaigns are over, there's a government in place, it's about now service delivery to the people. Honorable Titus, the president talked about a very critical matter, and this is when he addressed the parliamentary group meeting of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. He said, look, you MPs, you play a very key role. You are at the nerve center of accountability and looking at what's happening in the country. And he called unto them that they should hold cabinet secretaries to account. There's need for tweaking of the standing orders for CSS to appear before Parliament. We realize how tedious it has been for CSS to appear before parliamentary committees. Then going forward, how will you hold this 22-member cabinet to account in terms of service delivery to the Kenyan people? Because it's now beyond the campaigns, it's now getting down to work.
Good. I think Parliament plays a very critical role in this particular aspect of government, because one of the things that I need to make it clear is Parliament is part of government, because we've got three arms of government. And I think listening to what one of my colleagues has said, they said that several of us here are in the opposition. I want to make it clear that the 2010 Constitution actually removed the term opposition. So we do not have government and opposition. We've got the majority and the minority. And I think if you look at our Parliament now, it's 50-50 to say. If you look at those that are in Azimio and if you look at those that are in Kenya Kwanza. And I think all parliamentarians, as it is now, it is a work to do what is required of us. What is required of us is actually to put our government to account, whether you are in the minority or you are in the majority. The aspect of who is in the majority and the aspect of who is in the minority will be known once Parliament is constituted. We are actually opening Parliament on Thursday, and I think that is one of the critical things that we want to do. It is important for us to put the laws to practice. It is said that those that are minority are those that got fewer members of Parliament in the last general election. And I think, speaking with my colleagues here, the Azimio part of this government and this Parliament actually forms the majority.
Thank you.
And we are going to do it. We are going to ensure that the cabinet secretaries, unlike the previous cabinet secretaries, actually are called to account. They are actually supposed to sit within the committees to respond to what is required.
Thank you.
If it doesn't work, if it doesn't work like the last previous regime, it is because the executive will not have given them the chance to appear. I don't think the cabinet secretary by themselves will not want to appear before Parliament.
Thank you. Well noted.
Mheshimiwa Lote, well said. We hope that we'll host you a few years after you're making this commitment to just hold you to account also on what you promised you'll do in terms of putting these cabinet secretaries to account. Of course, the conversation continues. Remember, this morning, the bigger conversation we're going to be having here is also looking at the security situation in the northern counties. And of course, we have the leaders here who will be telling us a bit about the situation on the ground ground and the solutions that they want to propose on the table and what can work to keep people safe in that part of the country. But for now, we take a very short break. Do keep it Daybreak.